Hey, welcome to the Live Well presented by Rapala. And of course, this is a very special edition of the Live Well because it's a special tournament coming up. We've got the World Championship, 55th edition of the World Championship of Bass Fishing, the Bass Pro Shops Bassmaster Classic, presented by Under Armour. That's Ronnie Moore. I'm Tommy Sanders. And Ronnie, this is our fourth time for the state of Texas, second time here at Lake Ray Roberts.
Yeah, Texoma, way back in the day,
Yeah,
Hank Parker's victory, which that borders both states, Oklahoma and Texas. Then we had Conroe in 2017, and like you said, Ray Roberts 2021, a summer classic somewhat.
Yes.
Kind of a throwback to that Texoma Classic in the summertime, June for Ray Roberts. But we're here at the designated time when big bass, they show up in Texas all year, every month that's on the calendar, Tommy. But definitely late March is a great time to be in the state of Texas. And Ray Roberts, it should be primed up perfect, but it has been so cold in this region, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, that it might be a little different than we thought when it was first announced.
It is a little messed up. The weather's a little bit off of what everyone anticipated, but we know one of the facts for certain, we'll have 61 anglers who have qualified here, and they are going to be good to go, ready to go for 3 days of fishing.
Absolutely. We've got, obviously, from the Elite Series, College Series has a representative, the Team Series, Bass Nation, and our Bassmaster Opens. So many anglers that have qualified for this, but only 3 Texans in our field, Tommy. Lee Livesey, Chris Zaldain, and Ben Milliken. If you consider Zaldain and Milliken Texans, they live there, not necessarily
both
born
California
there.
to Texas.
They've been there long enough.
Yeah.
We will grandfather them in as
Absolutely.
Texans. But the one big thing we keep an eye on this time of the year, Tommy, everyone online always wants to ask, hey, wherever they're fishing, St. Johns River, Okeechobee, wherever, what's the water temperature? Normally, I don't care about water temperature, Tommy, once we get past the spawn. But these few months leading up to the spawn, water temperature is crucial. And looking at the weather, we're shooting this, Tommy, the Live Well, about 2 weeks from day one of the Classic. Yeah. So we're 2 weeks out from the Classic. The week of the Classic, the week of Classic practice, the unofficial practice, starting later that week, we're looking at temps in the 70s for the highs and 50s for the lows, but still heavy wind in this part of Texas.
It's Texas.
I feel like
they don't
shut the fans off in North Texas.
No.
And so wind every day, but 70s and 50s, not too bad for March when we want to warm up for sure. But when we get to Classic week, this is the projected weather the day before the Classic starts, 67 and 43. So we experience about a dozen degree drop from the highs and about 10-degree drop in the lows. Of course, it's a tournament week. It's going to be a little colder than it should be. But with the water temps currently 2 weeks out from the start of the Classic, day one, temps are in the low 50s, that 51 to 53, maybe 54, 55 in some places. I don't expect it to make that big of a jump, Tommy, especially with precipitation coming in. You would hope that it's maybe during the daytime and it's warmer precipitation, but if it does happen in the evenings, could be colder rain, could set it back. And Ray Roberts it's not the biggest lake in Texas, but it is deep. And so when you get that water churning from winds, especially sustained 17, 15, those examples of wind, it starts to turn that water, and that cold water just lingers in the top of the water column and really slows the spawn down. So I would love for them to be on the bed. They're probably going to be shallow, Tommy, but we may not see sight fishing like we thought when late March in Texas. It might be the first week of April they start to get it.
Absolutely. Someone put last week, I can't remember who it was, when we start this tournament 2 weeks from today, it's going to be big pants, big coats, big stage, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime we put a big Bassmaster tournament on, there's going to be some kind of weather dodge, that you have to dodge. Sure. But a lot of these anglers have spent plenty of time in the winter pre-fishing before that New Year's Day cutoff that we have for the Elite Series, for the Classic and the Classic.
Tuned into it a little bit.
It shouldn't be out of the norm that we're dealing with colder. I mean, we had poor weather at the St. John's, not the best weather in practice for Okeechobee. They're used to poor weather, but in the Classic, we'll tough it out. And there's a couple anglers that I want to keep our eye on, Tommy, that we will tough out.
Ones to watch.
I mentioned the couple Texans that are in the field for various reasons. Chris Zaldain calls this his home lake now, living in the Fort Worth region. So he spent a lot of time, more time. He knows every rock. He knows every tree limb, any brush pile. He has probably spent enough time graphing and knowing that offshore stuff. And when we talk about the fish not necessarily being on the bed, but maybe in that 5 to 10 foot range, that could be great for those hard spots off the bank, for the rock piles, some laydowns that are, old wood that's there, maybe some timber, shallower timber. I think he's going to know exactly where he needs to be, and he's going to have plenty of stuff to run. I've got Lee Livesey on here. Before he traveled for the Elite Series, he was wrecking havoc in this region, the Dallas, Fort Worth to the east, east and central Texas. That's Lee Livesey territory. And Tommy, Livesey shows up big when the classics on the line.
Yeah.
4 classics in his previous, in his career, 4 classics, and he's had top 15s in every single classic. And that's what you want, whether it's fantasy fishing or, saddling up, for lack of a better term, to an angler in hopes of them doing well. Livesey's got a great classic track record, and he wasn't here in 2021, so he has no preconceived notions of the Summer Classic, because it'll be obviously different this time.
Maybe an advantage. Now, you got John Garrett over here. Now, John Garrett, we know he's been sucking up the points like Cohen's business. He's #1 Progressive Angler of the Year, but why do you have him as a favorite in this Classic?
It's never a bad thing to be coming in with good momentum. He would honestly wish we finished the Elite Series schedule out and we had no break. I know he was spending his time at Disney World there in Florida before coming back, his vacation, but Disney World for John Garrett is where Big Bass live. Anywhere, that's his vacation. Ray Roberts has big ones. When we think about that 5 to 10 foot range, hard spots, a little bit offshore, but you're not deep. I mean, everything screams. He's a great bar fisherman on the Tennessee River, Kentucky Lake, Pickwick, things like that. I think he's so good at finding the little oddities off the bank without being way out in the middle of the lake. And so I think John's going to feel right at home. And second Classic ever. The last time he was in the Classic, Lake Conroe. So Texas, I guess anytime we're going to go to Texas, John Garrett's one to keep an eye on. So
should definitely be.
I definitely think that he's going to be one to watch for sure.
All right. Well, let's go and take a look at some baits that might play. The last Classic there in 21, Hank Cherry won with just over 50 pounds, 3 days of fishing, not even 3 full days of fishing.
Yes,
got a big delay on day number 2 there. But we might see some bigger fish this time around, right?
Yeah, I think that we saw some 9s and 10s and heard about those in practice. I think Frank Talley, Chad Pipkins both had giant fish during the tournament as well. We had a lot of different techniques going on. We had Justin Carr from the Nation with a bladed jig. We had Chris Jones from the Opens and the Nation.
Yeah, got very close.
Swim jig, flipping, bushes, things like that. Obviously, a frog came into play for Matt Airy. A jerkbait and a swim jig were huge for Hank Cherry and him winning. I could see us obviously having, maybe a deeper diving jerkbait. Not necessarily the shallowest version. You can still throw a deeper build jerkbait up shallow, grinding some of those hard spots, especially rock around those edges, and over timber, through timber, the ditches, things like that. I definitely see you could see a Rapala Maverick or a deep diving jerkbait work out there. I do think a bladed jig, a vibrating jig will factor. This is a great time of the year to throw one. Now, whether it's white or it's a bluegill color or maybe it's fire crawl, whatever a bladed jig should work. I never will count out on a place that's got plenty of wood, plenty of timber, and plenty of shallow cover that a jig would work, with a crawl style bait. This is a cleanup crawl on the back of this one. That's definitely going to be some mainstays for this time of the year. We started to see some crankbaits show up, even though no one said crankbaits were ever going to factor in an event again for the Elite Series.
That's already been disproven this
Brandon
year
Polinick
already,
knocked it out, and we saw John Garrett do well, and it's St. John's with it. I could see this being a great time for crankbaits to shine. We've got a flat-sided, the tiny 7, that 5 to 8 foot range crankbaits are going to be great. Flat side never hurts, especially in cooler water temps or the volatile water conditions. And then obviously this is a OG 6, a flat side as well. Circuit board lips always great. I could see those crankbaits, square bill styles, or these flat sides that are under 10 feet really be a big factor as well. And then obviously you could go on the other ends of the spectrum. These are the baits I expect most everybody to have, but there'll be some oddities. You'll have obviously the anglers who are forward-facing sonar, using a jig head minnow, whether it's a Crush City freeloader, mooch minnow, things like that. And the other end of the spectrum is big swim baits. It's Texas, Tommy, and it's March. They've got to bite a glide, or they've got to bite a big 6 to 8 inch soft plastic swim bait. Got to factor. So I know I just listed a whole bunch of baits. The only thing I didn't put in there is topwater. And boy, on Championship Sunday, the Classic, wouldn't it be something if topwater came out? But I think jig, bladed jig, jerk bait, crankbait, forward-facing sonar, however you want to do it, or just lock in a big bait and you're looking for 5 bites. You're looking for 15 bass that commit and stay hooked, and you can win the Classic. I could see this Classic being won without 5 fish a day. You could catch 4 for 20, 4 for 21, and be like, I had a 7 on, I would have had 28 pounds, things like that. Big ones live
happen.
here. You might not need a limit every day to win.
Was 6 share lunkers that come from there in the legend class. That's 13 pounds or more.
Absolutely.
So we know what lives there. We don't know who's going to pull up when, but hey, we'll hold it out there.
Yes.
We're saying there's a chance.
I think,
Yep.
I mean, you could be like, I'm going to go get a limit on forward-facing sonar and a minnow and catch a 10-pounder. You could say I'm fishing for only 10-pounders and catch a bunch of 3s to 4s. Lake is healthy. It's, like I said, with it being a colder winter, a colder spring, it's backing up these stages of the spawn. Normally, Texas, you think they could spawn in February if it warms up all the way through May, June. I really think that these fish are backed up, and if it gets weather right, if the weather gets right and they push, we could see so many giants show up in people's areas and have some magical days when it matters most, the Bassmaster Classic.
All right, the Bass Pro Shops Bassmaster Classic presented by Under Armour, March 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. We'll have coverage, TV coverage, right here on Bassmaster.com all 3 days, Saturday and Sunday on the Fox Television Network. Also some other places as well. So
I think we have FS1 and Big Fox, right? During the Classic this weekend.
We don't have FS1. It's all Big Fox.
Oh, it's all
Fox
Big
coverage
Fox.
is on Big Fox.
Absolutely.
So we look forward to all of it. We will see you there at the big show. Thanks for watching the Live Well.